right, here we go. Mark, good morning, sir.
Hey, good
Cannon,
morning, Tim.
welcome.
Hey, thank
Um,
you.
yeah, so for this episode, we've got a special guest, Cannon. Um, Cannon, what's going on, man? Can you maybe introduce yourself to the audience here?
Yeah. So I came to Ergo quite a while ago, but involved in various projects. I'm not a dev, so more of a finance background and more of a doer, organizer, sort of connecting things. Um, and so I've found myself usually stretched a little thin, but try to stay plugged in. So I'm with the Sigmanauts, the Sig Mining DAO. Uh, help give advice to HQ and ACO a little bit on View Finance. The advice usually isn't very good, but maybe they learned. Uh, Helped the mining DAO with the PHP token that we recovered with storage rent on the devs DAO. I'm on the multi-sig on that, which is sort of weird, not being a dev myself, but more of a trying to facilitate and get things done. Just created a bounty board for all bounties that we could find in the Argo ecosystem,
Oh, sick.
coding wise.
Yeah,
Um, so yeah, I mean that's sort of what I'm doing, I guess. But yeah, I
right
have a
on,
couple
man.
kiddos, and stay busy. Try not to stay too plugged in, but it's sort of uh, you know. As you guys well know, the Argo ecosystem sort of pulls you back in. It's like you think you're out for a little bit, something pulls you
Yeah,
back in. So,
yeah,
Right.
something Mark and I always talk about is like how easy it is to find your own way to contribute. It's like we need every kind of skill set, and if
yeah,
there's something you don't know, it's like there's some people who will help you do that thing and figure out how to provide some value or get what you want out of it, in terms of a community or um, learning how to use the dApps or whatever. It's a super cool place to be. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
absolutely. And yeah, go
go
ahead,
ahead, Mark.
Ken.
yeah. That's sort of to me that's what's amazing about sort of the core devs. They're all in the dev chat, and like I mean, somebody can ask to me even an obvious question. They'll actually respond and take the time to respond. They're not just going read the FAQ or you're an idiot. I mean it's and that sort of goes throughout, and then you go into a pretty tight knit ecosystem like Cyberverse. They just brought on hundreds of new players off of a different chain that are only used to Ethereum or EVM chains. And everyone's answering questions. No one's like, you're an idiot. I mean, everyone jokes. I'm tired of answering the same questions, but everyone keeps doing it. I mean, it's a nice, unique thing in the ecosystem. It sort of permeates, I think, every project in the ecosystem,
Yeah,
which is
100%, man.
a little different for me.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's like
That's what.
it's an interesting kind of emergent property with Ergo, just how like friendly kind of everybody is and so open to, like Tim was saying, just to help. So I'm curious, Cannon, right? So you got a lot of pots, so to speak, cooking, right?
yeah.
And a lot of things you're juggling. So where did you start? Like day one, right? You're like, hey, I want to get involved with Ergo, right? Maybe this is something that I'm kind of interested in. How did you kind of like begin from there to like where you are today with all these different sort of projects and things you're
Yeah.
helping out with?
So, uh, man, computer broke 3 years ago now. My main PC. Um, I didn't use it a lot, but I'm not a hoarder, but I try to buy what's good at the time and then not have to upgrade for like a decade. So it literally was 10 years old, um, and or 11. And so anyway, that broke, and I'm like, I'd heard about crypto quite a while ago. This was 2022. Heard about it quite. I wouldn't say early, but heard about Bitcoin sort of early. Didn't get into it, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on some of the things you read. But uh, needed a new PC. Oh, you can do stuff with your graphics card and make money. So I was like, well, I don't know. Let me see, right? So that was the rabbit hole. Uh, got a used or a refurb with a 3080 in it. So I was making like $5 a day, like that, like, and everyone's
Nice.
like, oh, the merge, don't get into mining. It's the worst, and so I mined the cards I was able to get. Conflux was the best
Mm.
for the 20 series. Swapped that to Erg, swapped it to Flux. Liked Flux a lot. I'm still actually, we use some of those resources for market making and other things when we need, to bounce ideas off of other projects that are proof of work. But sort of didn't jive with some of the folks in the ecosystem there. I asked too many questions, as you guys well know. I ask a ton of questions, and that didn't get well received always. It's usually true curiosity and not like, trying to shoot shots at people, which is how some people perceive it. And so anyway, in and out. I made a choice in August of 22. So I went from no GPUs in February to I had like 25 in August.
Nice.
Yeah. I was getting a bunch of 3070s, 2080 Ti's, some with good memory so they wouldn't, fade. I was looking at the DAG sizes. And so I was looking at what's out there and I wanted a mine Ergo. Uh, I had maybe like 100 Erg, but man, everything was expensive in 22, man. Like NFTs were like
Absolutely.
150, I mean, everyone was like
Yeah.
tipping like huge amounts. And I was like, shit, I can mine like one Erg a day, man. Like, what are you guys doing? I was on, trying to think of what the Enigma pool, which is sort
Okay.
of
Yeah.
some guys don't like it in Ergo. They were a little adversarial a bit, but we had a fun like bounty pot in there. So if you found a block, you could contribute to like a bounty pool, and then that thing would build up to like 100 erg, and then everyone would rent like 100 gig of hash trying to hit the next block, so that they'd get some huge payout. And this was when it was like 68 erg a block or something. I mean, like it's crazy. To
Right. Yeah.
now it's 18. And we were all joking, oh, you got to get to 10,000 erg, and I'm just sitting there going, there is no way. So I started looking around. I saw the merge was I didn't think it was going to happen in 2022. Just reading the tea leaves, I was really skeptical that it would ever happen because it kept getting pushed. So uh, another guy that a lot of people don't necessarily like, son of a tech, I think gives pretty good. He gets a little jaded sometimes, but I think gives really good like minor advice. Like
Absolutely.
it doesn't seem that he's a shiller. I mean, he
I
tends
think
to
he's
actually
trying his
show
best.
people. Well,
I
and he
do.
shows people how to
Absolutely.
spin up a node and run the proper wallets and that kind of thing. I mean, it's not just someone gave me a new, brick that I'm going to show you to buy for $10,000. So anyway,
Right.
I'd seen him
Absolutely.
complaining about the difficulty adjustment heading into the merge. And then he had talked about a coin. So this is sort of a long story, but anyway, I got into Caspa in July and August of 22, minting like 10,000 a day. And so that was pretty nice because that thing mooned. It real goofy. Asked a lot of questions in that Discord too. Have the receipts for it. I think they're still there. Didn't really like the answers I got. Quit mining it. And basically at that point, I was already sort of half on ERG, half on that, like dual mining with Gminer. Had a really good dual mining, and I was working with IEDoc at BZ Miner to get his dual mining going for Ergo on Caspa, like helping test that a bit, testing his betas. And so started mining Ergo, pretty much like full on, and then the ecosystem sort of like started slowing down after that crazy difficult adjustment. It almost like if you sort of step back and look, that was sort of the start of people sort of falling off a bit, and different non-ergo, but in the general crypto sort of, you know, saying different things, whatnot. And I saw that the people kept sticking to their knitting. So Joe, uh, Alex, other people that were on the AMAs just kept going. It sort of is what it is. It's working. Unfortunately, it's not working like the way anyone wants it to. But it's still proof of work. And we have DeFi. I started looking at duck pools. That was really intriguing to me. That someone was actually setting up a lending protocol that wasn't basically going to rug the lenders.
Mhm.
I mean, it's made for lenders, right? Like
Mhm.
the bank should be. It's made for the bankers, right? Like that's their first priority. And so did a little bit of testing on that, just a couple transactions here or there. Forgot to pull out. Probably lost 4 ERG, which at the time was like 1% of my bag or something. But anyway, um, did that. And so how I got into Ergo, I was wanting to plug in, and I couldn't really. There was always this, oh, join the Sigmanauts. I didn't really want to fill out this form, like I don't know. And I put in the dev channel. I am not a dev, but I have a finance background. Any projects need help. And so Mike from THZ reached out to me, and that was the project I sort of really wanted to work on. That I helped him a little bit, not really much, more of a sounding board. But then he added me to the SIGs channel, just sort of on his own. I guess you could at the time, like just with the way the permissions were in Discord. And so I
Mhm.
just sat there for like months, like never said a thing. And then finally one day someone was like, "Oh, you're in here." Well, da 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 da. And I was like, "Yep, been in here for a couple of months." I, didn't really know how to get plugged in. And then so beginning of 2024, when we did the market maker, they were looking at market makers and all that. I just put up my hand and said, "Hey, seems interesting. I'll help." And that's sort of really where it got plugged in pretty heavily. Um,
Oh, interesting. I thought you had been around because I got plugged in as well for the Sigmanauts in the beginning of 2024. And when I joined the market making group, I just sat there as well. Not like you, of course, but sat there and but yeah, based off what you were saying and stuff, I was just like, wow, this guy really knows what he's talking about. He's been here for a while. I don't think I've ever known you, I guess your origin story. So that's kind of cool
yeah,
to
so
hear.
it was sort of a long winding, I was trying to find I, I say it and people get skeptical, but for me, crypto is sort of a hedge in a good way. Like, I mean, I like the ethos of Ergo. It makes sense for crypto to like programmable money, stop,
Hmm.
uh, programmable value, um, so that you could be wealthy, you could be not wealthy, any scenario and use it, right? Like, uh, and I
Totally.
remember one of I think it was Bits tripping or whatever, talking about it like right before the merge, and people asking him, because his story's crazy, talking about he remembers the first time he saw Bitcoin on a exchange was for $1. He said, "Yeah, so I just bought 1,000." I was like, "Yeah, who cares? Like, it's gonna be worth nothing, but why not?" I'm like, "Holy shit!" Like, are you kidding me? Like, anyway, he seems like a really cool, chill dude. But I remember him saying, like the difference with this and anything else of value is, man, you could carry that seed phrase 18, 24, or whatever it is, 12, depending on the chain, right? You can carry that with you in your mind, and so you could be a refugee at some point in your life, or like have everything destroyed, be in the fires in LA. And if you
Mm-hmm.
know that seed phrase, you didn't lose everything.
Hmm.
And you can take it with you. So like, and he was talking about some of the stuff that was going on in the Middle East with people in Syria getting, basically kicked out or run out in certain areas. And he was like, if they had Bitcoin or they had crypto, yeah, they lost everything, right? They had to leave their country and leave it, but you have something still with you, right? You have your
Right.
family and you have this store of value that you've stored up for yourself. And that's to me sort of that's what I like. Is there's that, and it's not always numbers go up, which sounds crazy because it's crypto and there's so many people like
Yeah, man.
number go
Dude.
up. Like, do you understand that Ergo is valued at like $180 million today, and it's like a GitHub repo? Like, there's a community, like not knocking anything, but it's like, dude, it's a GitHub repo. There's companies now valued at $180 million, and they produce, two, three, $400 million of revenue every like, I mean, it's
Yeah,
hard
man.
to sort of help people
So something I've said here
triangulate.
before, and how I got started was, or how I started contributing with Ergo was writing articles, and that came easy for me because I was a philosophy guy in college and a history major, so I'm good at writing and reading and consuming all this. And as soon as like the values things was clear, like, oh, this is aligns, and if I were to build something from first principles, this is probably what it would be. And then one of the articles I wrote was like, the point of crypto is not to make you rich; it's to make you free. And so this is that hedge that you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's like, here's the thing that's made to be resilient and uncensorable and give you guaranteed rights. Because like, or it's like the rights that a country tries to offer you, it's like, well, that's somebody's responsibility to defend or provide those rights. And so that's what crypto should be doing, is like providing these rights to transact, to store value, um, to have your own wealth and protect yourself in all the events that you saved or just said right there. And so I'm like, yeah, this is it. I'm in. I'll contribute by writing. Cool.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and I was gonna say probably the first thing that I ever contributed that was like public was the duck pools. We did a, a change, or I forget, duck pool proposal or whatever it was, that changed because it was, I think, a 4-year payout. And I was getting with Kraz and I was asking a lot of questions. And I said, so if I lend, I'm never going to get interest until they pay me the loan back in
Right.
4 years. I was like, how about we do it in 90 days? And he was like, yeah, that makes sense. So I got all the data, did all the stuff, wrote like a three-page proposal. And that was really the first proposal that I've ever,
I remember that actually.
and that
Yeah.
was that was in the same time frame as sort of putting forward the market making proposals to the Sigmanauts and really the general community. But those are sort of the first two things that I did. Yeah, it's more of a writing or trying to do a little bit of research, or finance research a little bit on stuff.
Yeah. Right on, man. Well, I'm so glad you're here and helping out around the ecosystem, and now you're starting some of your own things. So you wanted to come and talk to us a little bit about the PHP token. Mark and I just kind of introduced it recently, and so I'm hoping you could maybe explain a little bit more about that and like share your vision for PHP.
Yeah. So the Philippine peso on Ergo, aka PHP. Yeah. So the SIGs mining DAO, which you guys probably went through this a little bit, but just if people have never seen it, the SIGs DAO has a pool. Mark operates it very well. We collect storage rent. There are other miners that collect storage rent and other coders who collect storage rent. We're the only mining storage rent. So we got a PHP token was it was created. We don't know by who. They had, and I'm looking over to this other screen real quick because it just cracks me up that somebody did this. They transferred like 200 or 300 ERG from Hotbit, which that exchange is gone, like it nuked or rugged, and transferred from Hotbit. 2 days later, created this token, and then 2 months later, put all their money back to Hotbit out of this wallet except for this PHP token. and that was it. Like that was it. Like they in out. See you later. Screw you
Right.
guys. I'm
Try the
going home.
ecosystem. Yeah. They
Yeah, screw
probably
you guys.
created
I'm
it
going
with their
home.
node,
Right.
you know? Yeah.
Um, and so that was in. It was created in 2020. So Ergo launched July 1, 2019. So this coin
Mhm.
was like birthed in the first year Ergo, which I always thought was like really cool. And it's right towards the end, like 12 days or so before the first anniversary. Um, and so yeah, so I saw we got the whole thing. I was like, whoa, let's launch this. Everyone's like, what are you talking about? Like you're crazy. And I'm like, well, I don't know. So I started asking our shitcoin gurus, HQ and ACO, sort of what's going on, how does LP work? How does this work? How does that work? So they brought me in. Uh, we have a Telegram group, just answering questions, all kinds of stuff. I was looking at what worked and didn't work for a lot of tokens. So like a lot of tokens will launch and they're going good and they're going up, and then like someone eats and it's gone. Like it's
Mhm.
just gone. And I'm like, okay, so uh, if the mining pool owns it, or the DAO of the mining owns this token, then let's keep part of it for the DAO. Let's distribute it to miners. So we do a miner bonus weekly with the pool. I was like, man, it would be great if this could be like one extra Ergo a week, because for those of you watching who mine, in April of 2026, you're only going to be getting three erg a block, baby. That's it,
Oh man.
plus storage rent. So and transaction fees. So I was like, man, if we can get this thing to be equal to one erg a week, that's like a third of a block, and maybe if it goes up a little bit, maybe it could be like one extra block a week. And so I said, okay, let's distribute a portion of this token weekly over 4 years to sort of symbolize the storage rent being every, after 4 years, your box can get rebuilt. And so I put out this fund. I put the max contribution at 4 erg, and then found out that wasn't, like, you could just keep hitting the button over and over and over. And like some people built up like 100 erg that they donated, off of one wallet. I didn't know that. But we got a really good distribution of people. So like there's 100 and I think 14 wallets. Yeah,
Okay,
114
nice.
unique wallets that contributed. Um, the top, and this is like where I sort of geek out on numbers and whatnot, but like the top 10 wallets had 49% of the contribution. So they didn't contribute more than half. So I thought it was a success. Like that it's across
Great.
a lot of wallets. There's a lot of wallets that people told me, hey, I'm using a lot of wallets, so I know that, you can pull those together and maybe
Mm.
they're back up in the top 10, whatever. 114 unique addresses. We launch it. And so I talked to Mav quite a bit, who runs the Bober token and does a ton of stuff with Cyberverse. And I mean, he's just a great guy. And he did a really neat like 3 month unlock of the LP. Like he locked his own LP
Mhm.
in Bober over like 2 years or something. Every 3 months, a little bit would unlock, and you got rewarded if you were. So I was like, well, okay, so maybe we can play with the LP on the PHP token. So 20% of the total supply is set aside for the mining DAO and miners. 80% went to the contributors. And then I locked that 80%. I locked 3/4 of that for 6 months to try to incentivize people, right? If you tell them no, they're going to do it, right? So it's like to try to incentivize them to not dump the token. And man, the thing's gone like batshit crazy. We started with 1,000 erg, and now I think the liquidity is like 24,000 erg equivalent or something like that. I don't know. It's crazy, like just crazy.
Yeah, it's an interesting experiment, that's for sure.
And I think a lot of it was right. It was the first thing with storage rent that we reclaimed and redid, and So I mean, there was a lot of like almost FOMO in that, right? There was a lot of people that were, hey, I contributed. I'm like, really? Okay. Like I'd never seen you ever say that before. So I mean, there was a lot of people I think that were helping, and there's some cool stuff coming up. Honestly, like some different tokens out there that we've missed out on in storage rent. Unfortunately, that I was planning on doing like one a month because there's about one every month coming up forever that like someone created a
Okay.
random token and it's gone. Um, and so in my head, the PHP token was it's to educate people, period, and to
Hmm.
incentivize miners, right? So to give miners extra revenue. So it started off being at the price from the 1,054 erg we raised on that token. It was one erg or zero point 0.9 erg a week. Now it's equivalent to like 13 erg a week is getting
Nice.
distributed to miners in PHP.
That's amazing,
Yeah, that's
dude.
incredible.
Hopefully our miners are the quote lazy kind and they don't realize that they have all this extra get rattling around in their wallet and dump it
Some of them,
constantly, right? That's what I was also sort of a little worried about. But
some of them are
yeah,
paying attention though, because in the weekly airdrop, you pointed out that there was one miner with 6 addresses, so it's getting six
yes,
times the PHP. So we had to blacklist some of his addresses.
yeah,
So some of them are paying attention, that's for sure.
yeah. And so the goal is to educate people, right? So Mark put together a great proposal to the Ergo Foundation on I want to grow this pool. I want to not have two miners, not have DX pool, but let's have an Ergo community, be one of the top, you know, three pools on Ergo.
Hmm.
And we know Lithos is coming, and however that's going to be constructed, it's still not really clear
Hmm.
unless you really dig in. But let's have a pool that people can just set and forget, but it's for Ergo by Ergo kind of thing.
Yeah, man. And even if Lethos comes in and is great, like you just have this whole group of people who are ready to do that. Like worst
Exactly.
case scenario. Like I think it's great, man.
Well, and I think you're always going
Totally.
to have mining pools. It's just easy, right? Like
Yeah,
it's
Yeah.
set and forget. I mean, I think that's where
for
Nice
sure.
Hash really, you know, sort of ruined mining in a way, right? Everyone just got into you just turn it on. Like you don't have to research anything. You just turn it on and you get, money
Right,
from
right.
Ergo Burr and you get, your whatever it was you wanted to get paid out in. But yeah, so the goal would be educating people on storage rent, which is it's going to be a hot topic coming up. I was looking at it with the Cyberverse guys last week, just jumping into their Discord and just a voice chat with like 10 or 15 guys. And I said, storage rent's going to impact Cyberverse. Oh, and I found like that, like in 5 minutes, I found five or six NFTs that are probably like 40, $50.
Oh wow.
That's the only thing in those boxes. And those
Oh
wallets
wow.
haven't
Yeah.
done anything since they bought them, like in 22. So it's like in
True.
end of 25, early 26, storage rent's going to have some like really juicy stuff in it. Like, I mean, really juicy
Yeah.
stuff beyond just like random shit tokens that we can create value out of.
There's gonna be a time when somebody loses a bunch of stable coins. Like I don't know when that is, but it's gonna happen at some point. Like
Well, and
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing, right? So right now with storage rent, the big blocks that we get are from the mixer because it takes so much like
Hmm.
times of mixing the erg through that those are worth like half an erg right now.
mhm.
Each block or each box you find that was a mixing box of the early iteration of it, it's worth half an erg. Well, we collected six of them the other day. In a year, that's we just collected one extra,
Yeah.
right? I
Pretty
mean, and,
juicy.
and to your point of stable coins, if it's a token, which a stable coin is, right? And you bought off the DEX or you bought off a token J or whatever, and there's just zero point 0.1 erg or 0.001 right? Like the minimum, not even like a tenth of an erg, but minimum. You're shit out of luck. You just lost like X, like you lost a bunch. There's ergo pad staking tokens. There's all kinds of stuff out there that's just sitting there I mean, there are a lot of people left the ecosystem, and I think it's um, uh, on top of the stuff the items we mentioned earlier about just sort of the ethos and the community and everything. The storage rent mechanism that Alex and Meshkin, what was
I'm not sure.
he was the other dev that was on the paper. I was looking at it the other day.
Dimitri Meshkov.
Yes, they put out the paper in like 2018 or 2017 when they were at IOHK.
Oh wow.
It's
Wow,
old,
wow.
dude, and no one's
Yeah, yeah.
implemented it, and they're both going, what the fuck? It's so easy to implement. Why hasn't everything that's been launched since then used it? Ergo's the only one, and so you get to that sort of meme that we have, one erg is one erg, but it's going to be pretty soon when you find a block, you
Mhm.
might find 1,000 erg worth of value that you harvest, and people are going to bitch and scream. I've already found a YouTube video saying from a couple years ago, this shouldn't happen. Da, da, da. It's like all you have to do is follow
Right.
the rules.
Yeah.
Right.
So to your point,
just
Tim, of like, what is the country? It has to defend itself, or step up for those rules. The only thing this ecosystem asks of you is to consolidate your wallet once every 4 years, and you can keep using it for forever. I mean,
Right.
there's
I was I was exchanging with somebody online, a large Bitcoin account, and he was just kind of analyzing all the dust that was about to just be. It's so invaluable, or it's worth so much less than a transaction fee. And so I was like, you should check this out. You would find it's interesting because you could capture all that value again. And he's like, well, that's theft. That's theft to take someone's coins or whatever. And I'm like, well, you're saying that it's just going to become not valuable. Like, isn't that the same thing? Like, and worse actually, because now it doesn't contribute to mining and securing the network into forever. Like,
that
I think that's the wrong way to think about it.
Yeah, there was a big. I just put an incredulous response back to somebody that had like hundreds of thousands of followers saying, oh, there's so many people that just had their seed phrase written down on paper and they just lost all their Bitcoin in, the Palisades. And I'm going,
Oh yeah.
And they were like, well, it's good for the ecosystem. And I'm like, why is that good
Oh my
for
gosh.
the ecosystem? Like, you're a moron.
That's crazy.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, I just don't get it. Like, and I understand like people thinking it's theft, but it's the first, everything's so early in crypto. It's like 10, 12 years old, 12, 13 years old now, but it's so early. This is still the first project that has said you have to pay to stay.
Right.
Well, it just makes sense, man. There's no free lunch. Like, everything's a trade-off. Everything's a trade-off, right, including doing nothing. And in Bitcoin, you can do nothing. And
all we're asking you to do, though, is go to your wallet and hit the consolidate button. I mean, it's not like you have to ever pay storage rent, technically, right? Like, you just have to stay active. And so it's like, I mean, that would be my one thing to everybody. If you what you hear today discuss you, or I discussed you, and you walk away, at least set a calendar reminder 3 years and 11 months from now to redo everything so you don't lose something that might be valuable. Who knows?
It's like a
airdrop funny tokens might be one day.
Right. Yeah, all the shark tokens that I've been airdropping over the past couple months, right? That'd be interesting where they go in the next 4 years. But it's like, I know Joe likes to talk about, with like natural resources, right? Natural resources have like a tendency to be corrupted, and kind of like integrating that within the blockchain is kind of interesting. Not to say, your erg is corrupted. But like, if you don't have the specific resources to uphold, I guess, the integrity, you know, it's not gonna. Did we lose Cannon?
No,
No, he's good. We're good.
I'm here.
Oh, okay. My screen froze. My bad. But yes, so I think with Ergo, you know, storage rent demurrage is going to be a powerful narrative because you know people are going to realize like, you know, we can't just lose, you know, the like these. It's not that it's a natural resource by any means, but it's a resource, and so we need to have the ability to kind of call it back and re-grab those resources, repackage it into something else. And just like the PHP token, you know what I mean? Or, you know, and the same thing can go for like, say, copper. You know, some people are taking copper out of, you know, appliances and things like that, repurposing it for other things. And so it kind of just follows the natural sort of like evolutionary, I don't know if that's the right way to think about it, but like paradigm of just like, you know, one man's trash is another man's treasure, but to completely burn it and throw it away because you lost your keys, I think is a kind of a silly, not even silly, but it's more of like a naive sort of thing. And like you guys are saying, we're so new relative to crypto. And so I think we're sort of teasing out as crypto as a whole, sort of these kind of ideas of like what makes sense. We're kind of
Yeah.
going through these like curves and things like that. And that's why we have like different chains. And, you know, and me and Tim, we've talked about it before, how, you know, all these other chains have like copies of each other, but Ergo hasn't been copied yet. So that's going to be, I think, one thing that'll be interesting from a Ergo perspective is like once Ergo does get copied, it'll be like, okay, not that we haven't made it, but like that'll be like a defining moment, I think, where it's like Ergo classic because somebody else wants to, you know,
Right. Fork it or
same
do something
principles.
else.
Yeah, exactly. Versus, you know, so then it's like, okay, I think we're on to something. And so, yeah, I'm excited. And it's cool too, like you were saying, with all the NFTs that we're going to be able to, you know, grab back from the ecosystem. Cause like in 22, 23, even to now, you know, there's been a lot of development in place. And so we're still kind of in 2020, 2021 terms of 4 years ago. But as we continue to plow forward in these next couple of years, like you're suggesting, it's going to be interesting, kind of the new dynamics of the markets relative to, you know, the specifics. So like, for example, say you didn't realize you lost your NFT. Maybe there's a service, not that you lost it, it's the wrong word, I guess, but say Storage Rent collected it. And it's like, hey, that was actually mine and I would like that back. It's like, okay, well, here, I'll give it back to you, but like 50% of the cost, or I don't know, you know what I mean? And so then that way the people can get their tokens back, but also
Yeah,
you can pay that service. But there's a lot of different ways you can spin it, but I think there's opportunity there nonetheless.
yeah, and it's the Demirage standpoint. That's what I've been like trying to push. I'm glad you said that instead of me calling it storage rent nonstop. I'm trying to get rid of that. Same thing with sub blocks. They're input and ordering blocks. You know, call them
Right.
something that doesn't sound weak. But the Demirage, the whole point or the reason why they said you needed it, and this is where it's sort of unique to Ergo, is man, when those guys created this or came up with this concept to launch, it was to have P2P programmable value.
Right.
You can't have P2P if you're, you know, if you got to have a supercomputer at Amazon to, you know, host your node. I mean, how
Totally.
many guys, you know, the staff popped in, he was running a pool over on Cardano and he came over the Rosen stuff and he runs everything on like Raspberry Pis. I don't even understand how they work. Like you know, he keeps saying, "Oh, buy one and I'll, you know, show you how to do it." You know, he's all excited about it. But you know that you can run a node and interact with value on like a
Mm-hmm.
$80 little micro computer. I mean, like that should blow people's mind, right? Like you can use
Yeah,
an old shitty Android phone as your node
man. I was
and
just
interact.
explaining. I was just explaining this to a friend who was just trying to talk to me about their crypto holdings, and I was telling him like why I didn't like those particular ones because it's like
Right.
you can't participate. You're not equal until you have $1,000 computer. And here's why I like Ergo, because anybody who has one of these, if they want to, they can run a node. or a Raspberry Pi, or a tiny little, something the average person can do, the average person in the world, not just the United States, because we get
Right.
a little bit skewed. And I even think Bitcoin and crypto generally, it's like, it's not as useful for an American as it is for somebody who lives in the African continent or
Right.
any other place, really.
Yep.
And so that to me is like the line, and the reason why sticking to those first principles is so important. It's because you're not thinking about you specifically, you're thinking about the world. And that's the kind of network we want to create.
And that's the thing, right? So that's what Demirage is helping with, right? The whole PHP, just sort of bringing it full circle, is if we weren't running Demirage, you couldn't run it on those small devices that are, one, they don't take a lot of energy input to run those devices. They're not typically like super technically savvy. Like, I mean, I joke, right? But yeah, I could go get a Raspberry Pi and figure out how to spin it up pretty quick. There's so many, helpful things out there. And so that's to maintain and go forward and be on a people's network, so to speak, right? It's not a 32 ETH and I was saying something the other day about the transaction speed, that you're going to have to be able to do on Ethereum in another year. Is like, there's only so many mainframes now that can do it, or so, I mean, like, it wasn't like they were saying, it's already X% on AWS, but now you're even going to have to like get a specific spec at a farm to be able to run the node, because you're going to have to be able to transact so quickly. You have to broadcast so quickly.
Jeez. Right. So you need the processing power, and I like what you said about maintenance. I think that's a different sort of idea relative to the narrative of Demirage, but like, that's a great point. Like, everything in our world has inherent entropy. Everything's going to fall apart, us included, our computers, everything. Right? Go to our graphics cards. Every few years we need to repaste them. They don't repaste themselves. So why would we think that a blockchain doesn't need inherent maintenance? And that's essentially what we're doing, right? We're kind of going and find the cobwebs that are deep back within the chain, cleaning those up, bringing them to the front of the chain in terms of the 4 years, and then distributing that as needed, and like, just follow the protocol, right? It's peer to peer. You know how the wallet works. You just need to understand what you're getting into, and not YOLOing however much money or making all these tokens, right? And then not understanding the kind of basics of, like, you wouldn't fly a plane and not understand how like the engine works or lift or how to control it, right? You're going to crash. So it's like the same kind of principles or mechanics kind of apply here to the people, at least, that are against Demirage or think it's stealing. It's not. It's like, again, it's a maintenance thing, right?
Yeah, and they've done a good job, I think. They being the folks that talk the most publicly about it, you have a bank that doesn't charge you money to have a bank account, or you have a place that you can store gold for free and no one's going to take it from you. Like, no one's going to no one's going to take that. Like, you just put it there and someone's going to protect it for you, and you get to have it for free at that facility. Like, it doesn't exist. Like, get over it.
Absolutely.
And I tried to get our local Demirage lord to join the podcast, but he said he didn't feel comfortable. English wasn't his first language. So Lewis, I think that's how you pronounce his name. I hope we're doing you justice here.
Yeah, no, he did great. There was actually a Twitter Spaces, and he spoke quite a bit and very well. I think I don't know. You might have to ask him again. So,
but I think we've been going for a little while, and while we have you, Ken, I wanted to talk about one more topic. Is that all right if I shift gears?
Of course, yeah, please do.
Okay, so I got to tell you, when I start thinking about all these applications, I just imagined the killer app is the thing that everyone has gone to once or twice. It's like, everyone wants to go to a casino. And I think a a lot of the reasons, every time one of my friends goes to Vegas, they come back with a little ticket and they run a parlay or something, pick a Super Bowl winner, or
Yeah.
they got an exciting UFC fight. I was talking about, we have a Ergo Fight Club, so we got a channel and we kind of watch the fights together. And we've been wanting to bet on chain, and I've been waiting for this app. And so I heard that you were working on something that would let people do some version of that. And so I'm really interested to hear kind of just what you got going, and
Yeah.
maybe a timeline.
Yeah, timeline is when. Soon, TM.
Right. 2 weeks.
So the give me 5 minutes and I'll be quick.
Yeah,
So
no, just take your time.
I first went to horse races when I was 11 and loved it. Thought the horses were beautiful. I mean, those are like just so well, kept, and they have the colors and everything. I mean, it's so fun. And I had a knack for, like, I don't know, every time I went, I'd pick like 8 of the 10 races that day, and I'd still only ever place them to I'd only bet for them to place because I was too chicken to bet for them to win. So you get win, place, or show. So I bet for them to show. Sorry. And I loved it. And I started realizing, what are these odds up, and sort of a numbers kid and guy. And I started looking at crypto, and there wasn't anything on Ergo, right, to do any kind of like real betting, other than you can buy Comet and you're going to get wrecked. That's the one good bet on Ergo. And so I looked at it, and what people don't understand, so like casinos or bookies or whoever, there's an underlying VIC, I guess they call it, or VIG, depending on who you're talking to. And it's the points that they make on your bet. And so the odds are only there to entice both sides to contribute, and then they get to keep the middle cut. And then I don't really like that. And so I find it quite dishonest. I like when I make a bet just one-on-one. And so I was trying to come up with a concept in my head, and I like tennis. And so tennis at a Grand Slam, like one of the big 4 tournaments, there's 128 competitors. Well, for 20 years, all you would ever had to bet was Djokovic, Nadal, or Federer, and you were going to win. Like, it wasn't going to be anybody else, right? Like, they won like 95% of the time. And so I said, well, what if you could bet the number 1 seed, the number 3 seed, the number 4 seed, and then everything else, to try to even it out, right? Because like the number 1 seed, yeah, he's probably going to win, but maybe one of these others is. And so that's where I came up with the idea of the field. But it sort of, for me, instantly wasn't sports. Concept was around sort of that a whole field, right, of 128 competitors, and you can really only choose 3 or the other 125. And so Formula One racing, I haven't quite figured out how to do it yet for UFC. I've been thinking about like who gets knocked out quickest, or like, something like that of the card that night, right? If there's a big, like, 6-8 fight card, who gets knocked out the quickest, or who, doesn't, or, I don't know. I haven't figured that one out yet. But the bigger application for me was like when you lend duck pools, you get a token back, right? And there's value in that token because that's your like holdings, that's your loan, right? That you lent to duck pools. Well, I wanted you to be able to get a ticket back on these longer events. Like maybe it's the NBA playoffs that last like 2 months or something, 3 months, and you bet early. Woo! Like, and at the end, and like you're 2 months in and you know you're going to win, but you want your money now, you can sell that to somebody, right? So there's like trying to create arbitrage opportunities, right? Trying to create a secondary market. And then what if you could bet on Nvidia, Apple, Google, or the S&P 500 for the year, for the month, for the week? What if you could bet
Mm-hmm.
on 4 or 5 cryptos? And here's the bucket of the others, and do it weekly, monthly, yearly. Then those tickets can create their own secondary market, and sort of that's sort of the goal for me. Um, the I hired a coder, a dev, a very skilled dev, to create it for me, and they created it on time, delivered it on time. It was slow paying because I was working. Um, I've primarily worked spring, summer, fall, and don't work in the winter. So I was working, slow to pay, got it paid up, everything's good, no like drama there. But um, tested the code, tweaked some stuff. It works. Everything works. The front end works. So I have a front end dev as well, just sort of slung it together. I say slung it together. I wouldn't know how to start. Um, and so we have a working beta. It's been working for a long time. It's actually just launching it, getting the focus to launch it. So I did quite a bit of research. I say quite a bit, like 2 days worth of research, not like months or something like Kushti writes some big paper. But I put some mental energy into the research, and there's several call them prediction markets now instead of betting. I think it's just so they don't
Mm-hmm.
get in trouble with people. Um, so with oracles, you get screwed, is all I can tell. One's already failed. I think others will fail. I think that's your fail point. Um, Most people in Ergo is going to tell me I'm crazy, but I think the Oracle way is your fail point. I think that you have to have guards like Rosen did. I think Rosen is set up probably the smartest way. You can set up a community utility, right? The Rosen Bridge is a utility, right? That everyone can participate in as a watcher, and select people can do it as a guard. So we set up the field that way. So that you basically have guards that can create the markets and then
Mm.
decide who wins the market. And they have to come together as a group to decide. And there's a kill switch button for probably 6, 8 months into the process that if they can't decide or whatever, people can't, they lose their wallet, whatever, and it's trapped in there, you can hit a kill switch and kick it all back to everybody. Nobody wins. But so we're doing basically fractional shares, right? Like you have to have 3/5 to get it, or whatever we create over time, 5/7, keep growing it out, or 4/7, sorry. Keep growing that out over time. So yeah, that's sort of the goal with it. Timing is really just a kick in the ass for me. I've got so plugged into some other things that sort of had it ready. I'm not that technical. I used to have to have some technical chops to get it going. So let's use this as the opportunity for anybody who wants to help finish that thing up and push it across the line. We'll be happy to do it. I have a white paper on it, rough, that it will be run by a DAO. I modeled it after I think is the most successful project on Ergo, which is DuckTools. I think that they have set up their white paper, set up their roadmap, set up what they're going to do, how they're going to do it very well from the beginning. I think Alex and the crew that set up Ergo did that. Set up, here's what we're going to do, here's how we're going to do it. Let's think about this on the front end and not fly by the seat of our pants and have to adjust everything every 5 minutes. And so, yeah, I mean, I have a couple people that are guards now, that we need a couple more guards. And we need some people that want to create some markets. So we can test it, and similar to DuckTools, test it for a bit, like a couple months, or maybe even a couple of weeks, if it's successfully tested like you want, push it live, do a little raise that's just focused on utility for the project, I'm not trying to make money off the thing. I want it to be a community utility. That again, it's not just for sports betting. Like it could be literally, you can make a joke. When is Rosen going to bridge X, right? Or when is Palmyra going to launch their token? What month is it going to be? Is it going to
Right.
be November, December, January, or later? Kind of thing. I mean, you can do anything you want with it.
It's like Polymarket meets crypto in some sense.
Yeah, I mean, those are all just obfuscating being a casino, right? Not having to get a license,
Right.
and then you look and they have a license in some jurisdiction, and they don't regulate you from not using it if you're not in their jurisdiction, right? Like they might get a betting license in Liechtenstein and then open it to the whole world, and it's like, well,
Sure.
let's just make it a utility that you can use for damn near anything. If the guards can come to an agreement, right? In long term, I want it to be API led, right? So we can get API feeds for sports. Sometimes you have to pay. There's actually API feeds and like GitHub for sport outcomes for certain sports. So I mean, that's the kind of thing. There's crypto price feeds, there's stock market price feeds, all kinds of stuff. So I mean, that would be the ultimate goal, is just really more a way for people to have fun and create transactions on chain.
Yeah, it's like if you could recreate the Enigma pool idea, where it's like, I could bet on myself to find the next block because I have like very high effort, for example,
right.
And that'll be pretty interesting.
Fantastic,
All right,
man.
Most
But yeah,
definitely.
no. Best of luck. One step at a time, and I know we're like an hour in, and so anybody who's made it this long, no, don't apologize.
So.
and anyone who's made it to this part of the podcast, help this guy out because I want this out. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And this could be, your opportunity to kind of, maybe you've been on the sidelines, similar like we all were, and then maybe this is the opportunity for you to kind of shine out and join the ecosystem. So
most definitely. Most definitely.
All
Appreciate
right.
it, guys. Thanks so much for what y'all are doing.
Yeah, thanks for sharing all this and for joining. I had a good time.
All right, awesome.
Yeah, see everyone. Thanks, Cannon. See you, Tim.